All right, hello everybody. It's been quite some time since my last video. I looked it up a little while ago, but to be honest, I just don't remember what it was, but it's been a long time. And I haven't been making videos or Emacs videos. I've been making videos for my classes for a few reasons. One is I've just been I was feeling kind of burnt out at work, so I just didn't have the energy to come up with new things for videos and put them together. And then that whole work thing, that was probably the biggest reason. The other reason is a lot of my videos were on packages that I just discovered for Emacs. And so I just do a little video on how I was using them and what I thought about them. And of course, pretty much all of them I like, because otherwise I wouldn't be using them. And I was finding that I wasn't playing with anything new. I was kind of settled in what I did, and that was great. And also, when there was something new, by the time I got around to it, there was already another video out there. Maybe I shouldn't have let that stop me, because even if it's a very similar video, different takes are probably a good thing. But anyway, that's why I haven't been making them. So my big update now is I just retired. So after 33 years in public education, mostly at Stuyvesant High School, and more recently at Hunter College, and also at Seward Park at the very beginning, I basically decided to hang it up. No more full-time work. I want to stay in the game and do interesting things with fun people to work with, but not on a full-time basis. So I'm just going to kind of chill for the next couple of months, as my wife also recently retired. As we figure out what our next adventures are going to be. But that's kind of given me, a refresher in energy. I don't have work wearing on me anymore. So I can get back to making some videos for, and be part of the Emacs community once again. So I posted recently on my blog that I was going to make a little eLisp series, and I am, but this is not that. First, I figured I'd make a little video on Elfeed Webkit, and that was suggested to me by JCS. And I thought, yeah, let me do that, because in order to do the eLisp series, I've got to still work out a few things, what I want to do for some of the intermediate videos, and and basically bone up on some of the eLisp myself. So, I originally wasn't going to do the Elfeed WebKit because I just thought it was too small. I thought it was like, hey, it's great, it's cool, but it is what it is. But then I looked further and I said, well, there is one little thing, in that you need to have your Emacs compiled with WebKit. So I thought that I would look into how and demonstrate how I compile and set up Emacs, and then do a quick demo of Elfeed WebKit, and that might be useful to some people. So let's go. Let's take a look. So. If you don't know, I've been using Elfeed for a long time, and it's my primary reader. I did a few blog posts and videos on this in the past, and in the blog post associated with this, I will post those links. And one of the reasons I like it is because you can see there are a few different things here. I have all the icons, SVG now installed, and I've made a few configuration changes, but nothing huge. So let me see, where is this? And you can just, with Elfeed, you can use elfeed.org or elfeed.org or org elfeed. Again, I'll link to it in the old posts and videos on that. But you could just make an org file with all of your RSS and Atom feeds, and it's just really easy to maintain and organize and use, and I really like the interface, and it was working well for me. And the way I'd use it is I would load Elfeed, and then what I would do is I would map it to, let's say I want to look at this from Gothamist. I wouldn't read, for the most part, inside Emacs. For the most part, I'd bind to the B key to open up the article in my browser. And that worked really well for me. And let me just close that for now. And we'll get back to this this web page in a few minutes. And that's kind of how I did it. And then I'd be like, mark it as read, and whoops, and that would be that, and it worked well. But then I noticed this Elfeed Webkit, which is like, wait a minute, we can now actually have the web stuff rendered correctly in Emacs or not, depending on the case, and that's been kind of a game changer. So I read this post that Fritz wrote, and then I followed it over to this, and it basically said you need to install this. You can just do this use package, and then there was a little example, but you needed to have, and where is it? Xwidget support. To see if you had it, try this command. And this is a little ellipse command. I'll just cut and paste it. And you can see down in the bottom it says true because I do have it installed. But I had to compile Emacs from source to do that. So let me show you how I do this. So the first thing is, a couple of caveats. I am doing this on Linux Mint, which is an Ubuntu derivative, and your steps might be a little bit different. And in addition to that, I had to install certain packages. And I can't tell you which ones they are now because they're now all installed, so I won't get the error when I try to build Emacs. When I first tried to build Emacs, it says, oh, you're missing this package. And I'll try to show you one that I think I remember. And then I would go about installing it, and you might need to install different packages. But here's the basics to get you going. So the first thing that I had to do is I had to go and I would search for my software sources, and this will be a little bit different under Ubuntu or under different Linuxes. And then I would make sure that I clicked on here, which says source code repositories. And I'm not going to be pulling the Emacs source code from Ubuntu or from Linux Mint, but you need that for the building tools. So you basically click this on, click the OKs, follow what it says, and that'll all be good. Then you have to get the stuff you need to build Emacs. Now I'm not going, oh, I shall do this. So I do sudo apt-get update, and it asks me for my password, and this will just update my files. And then I would do, and I might just break out of this if this doesn't start in a second, because again, I don't have to actually, well, there we go. I don't have to actually do it for real right now because I already have everything installed. Actually, I'm just going to pause the video recording. Oh, no, there we go. So anyway, then I would have to do sudo apt install build essential. And that would just kind of install some of the Linux Mint or Ubuntu things you need for building stuff. I don't know all the specifics. And then I would do sudo apt build dependency Emacs. And again, well, now it's going to ask for these. I'm not going to install them now because, again, I'm not actually going to complete a build. And actually, these are, I think, just updates to the packages that I have. So, again, I'm not going to do it right now. But you would type yes to that, and it would install most of the stuff you need. Maybe all the stuff you need. So now the next thing you need to do is actually get Emacs. So for that, I would go here to savannah.gnu.org, and this has where the Emacs repository is. So what I would do is I'd come over here, and I would copy this line. Let me make it a little bigger. Copy it, and you do need Git installed for this, and you'll see it's git clone and then everything there. Actually, before I do this, I'm going to go into the temp directory. The temp directory under Unix type systems is just like everyone can write to it catch-all directory. On most modern like Linux systems that I'm aware of, it'll automatically be cleared out every time you reboot the machine. So it's kind of a nice place for throwaway stuff. And since this is just a little demo, it's throwaway stuff. Now, while that's cloning, while it's copying all of the files over, if you're not comfortable with Git, what you can also do is somewhere in here, yeah, I can click up here for the Emacs source repository, and I could actually download, if I wanted to download 29.0.92, I would basically save this. I would click on this to download it, whatever, and going back to these versions, and I can even click here for even older versions. I'm not going to do it now because, again, I am working from Git. I recommend working from Git. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. So this will just take a little bit of time to download. And we're almost there, so I guess I'll just leave it. Leave it. Again, I was thinking about pausing the video, but it looks like this will be done shortly. And again, you could just download these files. These are tar and gzip files, so you then have to use the tar command to unarchive those. But again, if you're using Git, you do not have to do that. And also to tell you again, what I'm doing is not a best practice, it's my practice. So you may not want to follow me exactly, but this is what works for me. And what works for me is I just compile the very latest that I get from this archive. I'm not like, let me go back to version 29.0.90 or 28.2 or whatever. I'm just going with whatever's here. But if you want to, you can go back to the older one. So let me show you. Whoops, get over to here. Let me cd into my Emacs directory. And now I'm in my Emacs directory. And if I do want to go to an older one, what I can do is I can type git tag. And that'll show me all the tags. And you can see that I can go back to any of these. And so, for example, if I want to go to Emacs 28.1, I could say git checkout Emacs-28.1, and that would check out that older version, and I could build that version. Now, if we come here to my Emacs window, you can see that I'm running 30.0.50 build 3. So yeah, I'm just kind of going nuts. I'm living on the edge. It works for me. But if you don't want to, you could always go back to an earlier version. So the next thing I do is I have to run this autogen in here. And so I run shell or sh, run it under the shell, and then autogen. And that's setting things up for me. And now it says I can do configure. Now, configure, if I just do configure, it's just going to do a default configure. But I have to make sure that I'm getting Xwidgets with this. And you do that with special flags. So I'm going to show you the flags that I'm currently using when I compile Emacs. And that's where this Mastering Emacs article is coming in. And I highly recommend Mastering Emacs. Even if you're an Emacs master, buy the book. It's worth it. Supporting a worthy cause. It's a great book. I have a hard copy of it somewhere. I don't know if I have a copy. But I highly recommend it. You'll learn something even if you know your stuff. But here's an article, and this article is talking about setting up Tree Sitter. And Tree Sitter is new within Emacs, and I've set it up, but I haven't really done anything with it yet. And I wanted to set this up, and part of this, it's like, I got to compile Emacs with certain things. I've got to make sure I have it. And it talks a little bit about, again, notice here we're getting Emacs, but here we're explicitly checking out branch, Emacs 29, and again, I'm just grabbing the whole thing, or the most up-to-date thing. But then it talks about speed up Emacs native ELIST compilation, and so I clicked on that, and then I saw other things to compile with. And again, I'm not going to go through all of this here. But you'll notice here we go to CD Emacs, and then the autogen, and then it says here you can run configure, and it says configure, but it says here are some options: without compress install, with native compilation, with JSON, and with mail utils. And there was also some more stuff that I found reading these two articles, like here, export GCC or CC, the compiler to use should be GCC 10. And so anyway, I wanted to see, well, gee, what else is there? So if I do .configure, I figured I could do .configure and then do -- help, and it gives me all this help, but I wanted to see all the with stuff that I had. And so let me just show the command again. I'm grepping for with, which is the with, that all the lines with with in it, and then I'm putting it through my pager, and you can see I can do with mail utils, which is one of the options that I use, with Kerberos, which I don't use. That's for authentication, developed at CMU. Without, so without can say to exclude certain things. With tree sitter, with JSON, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see which ones you have to turn on or off. And if you're, usually if you're not sure, like I wasn't sure, I just did the ones that made sense based on what I was installing. Like everything that this article said turn this one on, turn that one off, et cetera. And this is what I'm actually using. So without compress install, with native compilation, and then at the very end I say set this environment variable, use that GCC 10. Again, this was pulled from the Mastering Emacs article, so I'm just following that. With JSON, which again I pulled from the Mastering Emacs article, so that was all about the tree sitter and everything that I went to from there, except the key for Elfeed. So the only part of this is important for Elfeed is this guy over here with Xwidgets. So anyway, this will configure my Emacs build with all of these things. Now you'll do this, you'll hit enter, and it's checking to make sure it can do everything. And it may not work the first time. Like it might say missing, can't find this library, can't find that library. In which case you'll have to figure out how to install it. Now this should just take another second, and it hopefully won't come up with that error for me because, well, everything should be installed. And everything's fine, so now I could build this, but if I needed to install a library, like I remember once it said you needed a TIFF library, and so I was like apt cache search libtiff, because it's a good gap. If it said, if you need a library called blah, under Linux, it's probably called libblah. And more specifically, it's probably called libblah dev. And so I'll do this search, and I'll go, libtiff5-dev. And so, or libtiff-dev for the just generic-y one. And so I did an apt install libtiff-dev, and then I did the configure again, and it all worked great. So you might have to do that a few times to get this all, to get everything working. So once you're done with that, you can just type make. And they also say, like you can use this, it says over here, J4, and that'll use more processes, so it'll hopefully it'll be faster with your CPU, all of your cores. But I usually just type make and just go away and come back later. But you would just hit enter here, and it would compile. If you get errors, they sometimes say, try to make bootstrap. This is in particular if you're updating to a new version. If you followed this procedure, and then you've pulled new Emacs sources, and then you're trying to build it again. But I usually just type make and enter. It runs for a while. I'm just going to break out of it, because no reason to spend a few minutes because it can take a while. And then I would do sudo make install. It would ask me for the root password, and then it would install Emacs into my system, and I'm good to go. And that's how I install Emacs. And that's it. So it's not a hard process, but it does take a little time. And then if you load Emacs, however you load it, you'll have those features. And so now we get to, after all of this, we finally get to Elfeed Webkit. So let me load up my configuration. And I'm using a little bit of a different configuration now. What I'm doing, it's still org based, but every time I modify it, I'm tangling it and building a .l file. Maybe I'll make a video on that if people want one. And I'm also using straight. So if we come down to Elfeed, which we have somewhere in here, and this is all the old stuff. All this stuff up here is my old Elfeed configuration. In the blog post, I will have links to those videos and all of that. So what I added is this stuff down here. So I'm not really a master of straight yet, but I use straight use package Elfeed Webkit to install it. And then I use just an old school Elfeed use package to configure it. And this configuration is exactly the same. All I literally did is I cut and paste this up to here. The only difference is this has a % for the toggle, and I had a T for the toggle. I could have sworn I just cut and pasted, so I'm wondering if that was a T on Fritz's web repo, and then he changed it. But either way, that's it. That's the only thing I did. I just copied the existing configuration. But now the magic happens. So now when I run Elfeed, so this is Elfeed here, and you know, so I could do what I did before. I can go here and well, this is what I did before, but I could go here and I can type in the B key is what I have bound to bring it up in a browser. But I could also just hit enter, and Elfeed Webkit is like, well, I can just render this regularly. But it could also be like, or I can hit that T key, and it renders it the same as the web page. So it's like the best of all worlds here. And I can, I can go and hit N to go to the next one, and it's keeping that. And let me just make this unread and turn that off because I don't know if that one needs that. And I wanted it to be an unread because I have it set so it periodically clears out the red stuff. But that's basically it. And it's just a really nice way to stay in Emacs because now I don't have to worry. Like if it's funky looking, if it comes out correct, like it's like, oh, that looks great. I can read it. It's terrific. But if it's funky looking, I can just hit the T, and I'm like, boom, that's what it's going to look like on the web page. So the other thing I also want to briefly show, and this is unrelated to any of this, is more and more people are using what's this called again? Like I'm reading like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's blog. I think he's very thoughtful in what he writes, a very intelligent guy. Not to mention obviously great athlete in his day. But I'm going to bring this up in a web page. Substack, yes. And I've been subscribing to some more Substack things recently. And at first I was just getting them via mail. And again, same deal. We can look at it this way. We can look at it this way. Let's jump here and unread. But what I discovered is for anything on Substack, if you just go to the main Substack URL and go to /feed, that's their RSS feed. And you could just throw this into your elfeed.org and you're good to go. And you don't have to subscribe in the email if you want to use a reader like this. So anyway, this has been about a 24-minute, it'll be 25 when we're done, intro to compiling and building Emacs from scratch, a little bit about Elfeed Webkit. I'm going to be getting going on my my eLisp series and hope to get that going soon, and hoping to get back and being part of the community again. All right, so that's it for today. Thanks everybody.